Hello, everybody. I just want to give you the lesson on introductions that we did in class last week in case you would like to watch it again, or in case you'd like to just look at a part of it as you do your own introductions for your final drafts. So, this is the same lesson that we did in class this past week. As I mentioned, this is the shape of your introduction. And the reason it's shaped like an upside down triangle is because you're going to start very general at the top, and you're going to get very specific as you get closer and closer to your thesis statement. So, up here, I'm going to start with some kind of a general statement. I'm going to narrate my reader through some limited background information in the middle to get them to that very specific thesis that I will end with. Okay, so your general statement is a hook. A lot of teachers call it the hook, but I do want to caution you against using a question. I know when we're younger, we tend to start papers with a question, but as we get older and more sophisticated, that's less appropriate. And so you probably want to go for some kind of big general statement that hooks your reader and makes them want to read more. Here's mine. Acrobats spinning, divers plunging into a 1.5 million gallon pool, and performers demonstrating flexibility and athleticism. These are just some of the hallmarks of a Cirque du Soleil show. So, hopefully, with this hook, I am making my reader want to read more. I'm having them picture what it's like to be at a Cirque du Soleil performance. And I'm really drawing them into my paper with just some kind of a broad statement. All right, now in the middle, sometimes I like to call this the limited background information because you want to give your reader enough background information that they can understand how you're getting to your thesis, but it does need to be fairly limited. Your introduction is not going to be a super long paragraph. Mainly, you want to try to provide a link between your hook and your thesis statement. So, in order to get from my hook to my thesis, I need to do something like this. Since the late 1980s, Cirque has taken the world by storm with its unique balance of entertainment and artistry. However, despite its great success, the circus comes from humble beginnings. In its infancy, the troupe struggled to make ends meet and faced infighting and turmoil. So, what I've done is I've allowed myself to address certain things in my paper. I'm going to talk about the history and the beginnings. I'm going to talk about its success. And I'm going to talk about how they went from really struggling in the beginning to becoming the huge success that they are. And that's going to lead me right into my thesis statement. Now, your thesis statement is your overall argument. It is a very specific statement, and it is generally something that makes an argument. Here's mine. Cirque owes its current success to the persistent work ethic of founder Guy Laliberté, as well as early financial support from the Canadian government. So, my thesis is going to allow me to write a research paper um, that addresses the work ethic of the founder, which was a big focus of what I found in my research, and also address the financial support that they received. It's going to allow me to make that argument that sometimes artistic endeavors require early financial support to get on their feet. And that was another thing that I found in my research and that I would like to try to argue with this research paper. This is why it's always good to leave your introduction until you've already written your rough draft, because sometimes it takes an entire draft of writing to really arrive at the main idea. Okay, so here is my entire introduction put together. Acrobats spinning, divers plunging into a 1.5 million gallon pool, and performers demonstrating flexibility and athleticism. These are just some of the hallmarks of a Cirque du Soleil show. Since the late 1980s, Cirque has taken the world by storm with its unique balance of entertainment and artistry. However, despite its great success, the circus comes from humble beginnings. In its infancy, the troupe struggled to make ends meet and faced infighting and turmoil. Cirque owes its current success to the persistent work ethic of founder Guy Laliberté, as well as early financial support from the Canadian government. So you can see how I tried to link all of these ideas together in a logical way, but I did start very broad and I gradually worked my reader down to that very specific statement, which is my thesis. Okay, speaking of the thesis statement, I just want to talk you through a few examples so you know how to write a really solid thesis statement. So, I picked a couple topics that I know are being covered by different students. One of those topics is Muhammad Ali. Now, this first thesis statement is not a very strong thesis at all. It says Muhammad Ali was a boxer. This is way too obvious. It's way too general. Nobody would ever argue against this. I'm basically just stating the obvious, and it's very simple. So, all for all of those reasons, this is not a good thesis statement. Let me show you a better version. Muhammad Ali began the trend of activism in United States athletes with his immense popularity and public stance on the Vietnam War. So, this research paper would allow me to talk about Muhammad Ali as an athlete, but also make the point that he really started a trend of athletes becoming political activists. And this research paper would focus a lot on the stance that he took on the Vietnam War and some of the things that happened because of that, and it would not only focus on his boxing career, but also his political activism. Now, here's a different thesis, also on Muhammad Ali, but let's say my paper really doesn't talk about the political activism. Let's say my research paper wanted to focus more on some of the effects of his boxing. I could write a thesis statement that says this. Muhammad Ali was a popular boxer whose legacy shows us the devastating effects that repeated head injuries can have on athletes. So, again, same topic, but a very different research paper. This paper would explore his career, his boxing, and argue that head injuries do have devastating effects on athletes. It might even allow me to talk about some of the other sports where this has become a concern. Okay, so here's another topic. Someone is writing a research paper on plastic bags and pollution. Now, number one is not a great example of a thesis statement. It just says plastic bags are harmful to the environment. Again, it's too general, it's pretty obvious. Nobody's probably going to argue with that. And it doesn't really let my research paper do anything interesting. So, let me show you a slightly better version. Plastic bags are causing pollution and we need to do something about it. That's better because at least it's making an argument. The problem with this one is I haven't really said what that something is. So again, I'm still way too general for a thesis statement. Let's make it more specific. The world is overcome with plastic, and everyone from world governments to ordinary citizens must take drastic action to reduce the use and disposal of plastic products. Okay, so this thesis statement allows me to have a research paper that not only talks about pollution caused by plastic, but also talking about government and what government can do in terms of laws that have been passed and laws that people are working on right now to address plastic. It will also allow me to talk about ordinary citizens and what they should do to reduce plastic. So, this thesis statement is specific enough and also makes enough of an argument that it gives me something to work with in my research paper. So, that's really what we're going for. All right. Good luck with your introductions. Please be in touch if you have any questions, and I'll be in touch more as we move forward.